Have you been wondering whether you might be neurodivergent, whether you might have ADHD or you might be autistic? But the diagnostic criteria seems so confusing, you're just not sure what counts and what doesn't. Maybe the things that you've noticed aren't necessarily stereotypical and you are wondering whether that still counts. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm an AuDHD mum of 2 boys, and I'm here to help you understand your neurodivergent brain. Today, I'm sharing some real-life diagnostic examples that you might not have heard of before that might help you recognise the traits of autism and ADHD. Before we dive in, just remember that autistic traits are human traits. Everyone zones out sometimes, everyone loses their keys sometimes. The difference for autistic or ADHD brains is the frequency, intensity, and the impact. I've based this video on my own experiences, things that other people have told me, and the individual research that I've been doing over the years. But it's not a replacement for a professional assessment. Think of it as a tool to help you reflect or prepare for a conversation with a clinician. So the examples in this video are not random. They link to actual diagnostic criteria. For autism, differences in communication, routine and structure, and sensory. For ADHD, persistent inattention and/or hyperactivity and impulsivity. Remember, when these traits are persistent, intense, and impacting on daily life, that is when they become clinically relevant. So let's start with autism and communication. You might rehearse conversations in your head before they happen, and that usually comes from a place of something called scripting. For a lot of autistic people, processing conversations and knowing how to answer correctly with social rules in the moment is actually quite difficult. So often we will rehearse the types of conversations that we might have in preparation. This is almost a part of masking. Another example is taking indirect language literally. Now, the example I have for this isn't actually about me. It's actually about my sister, who isn't even diagnosed autistic. But this is just such a funny, sort of cute example to give. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's autistic, but someone who is doing this very frequently and not understanding might be. So when we went to Disney World, when my sister and I were much younger, both in primary school, we were at this animated Nemo, and the turtle from the animation came on, and this animation could talk to the audience. So, back then that was like, wow, it was amazing. And the turtle spoke to my sister and said, "Hey, Alicia, can you say turtley?" And she replied, "Yes." So he tried again. "Hey, Alicia, let's try this again. Can you say turtley?" And then she just goes, "Yeah." Now, most kids would try and say turtley back. That's what they were asking for. But my sister took that question very literally. Another example of this might be when someone says, "Can you open the window?" And then someone says, "Yes." They're answering your question. Yes, they can open the window, but you haven't asked them to open the window. And lastly, someone might struggle to end a conversation. So they just keep adding details until the other person ends the conversation. So the next one is order and routine. So an autistic person might need a specific bedtime routine or bedtime ritual in order to feel safe. They might feel unsettled if someone moves an object literally by just a few inches, and you might not notice that, but an autistic person often will. And another thing is always taking the correct route into somewhere, feeling thrown off if you have to change it. This isn't really directly linked to this, but it is an example of routine and order. For me, when I was a child, this doesn't make any sense. Anyone knows when you enter a room and you go beneath the doorways and they have the metal bit that holds the carpets together or whatever, it's just like the different flooring. I couldn't just step through and walk through. For a period of time, I would step through with my right foot and then my left foot, and then I would jump back, and then I'd do my left foot and my right foot and jump back, and then I would jump over, and then I was able to walk. And that was because everything had to be even. And I look back and think that was absolutely bonkers, but yeah, there's an example. Yeah, it was just a need for evenness. Now we're going to go on to some ADHD traits. So let's go through some inattention traits. Forgetting what you walked into a room for. Anyone else done that? But I'm not on about just like once or twice a week or a month. I'm talking about like multiple times a day. There's been days where I've done it 25, 30 times in a day, and it's led to meltdowns because it is so frustrating when you're trying to remember that. Even if you keep saying it in your head, it just goes. It's just gone. Frustrating. I feel like when you're a parent and you're tired, this gets even worse. For the general population, it would get worse as well at this period of time. Same for people who are going through the menopause. There are times within your life that it can get worse, but if it's taking over your life entirely, that's when it's like, and then the next, starting a task and then getting distracted by another, leaving both unfinished. A lot of people have seen analogies where someone with ADHD has been doing something and then sees something in the corner of their eye and gets excited by it. And that's effectively what this is. That constant distraction, sees a new shiny object, excited, goes over to it, starts that, forgets about the rest. That's a really difficult part of ADHD, I think. In particular, things at home, when I try and do anything that I need to do, like tidying up, cleaning, or doing mundane, boring tasks, it's really easy to be distracted because my brain is always trying to seek dopamine. And yes, that, along with autism, is quite the combo. Ultimately, it leaves you feeling like you've accomplished absolutely nothing at all. And then the chaos of the ADHD brain often means that you completely forget about something that's important unless it's right in front of you. So quite often when I've got ideas, things I want to do, I will end up switching from one thing to the next because I'll see something else that I'm like, I need to get that done. I need to get that done. And then the last one, putting something in a safe place and instantly forgetting where that safe place is. Yeah, hard work. And again, we've all probably done it once or twice, but I'm on about doing it multiple times a day to the point that it is completely wrecking your life. And now we move on to some crossover traits. So, needing structure, but being unable to stick to it properly. I would say that this is probably lightly the bane of my existence. I genuinely cannot cope with mess and lack of organisation, but my brain is usually too chaotic to be able to organise and stay organised. And also the actions that it takes to stay in a regular routine day to day. I will think up the routine, but my brain gets too bored because, again, it's chasing dopamine. I really think that having autism and ADHD together is evil. It's absolutely awful. It's terrible. It's horrible. I'm not saying I'm evil, by the way. Just that the two disorders together are very hard. And I feel like this is realistically one of the most devastating parts of having both ADHD and autism. People don't see the intense need for structure or the absolute chaos because to them it looks quite balanced, because externally it's a bit of both, whereas for you, you've got both extremes in your head at an extreme. And that's so hard because then people don't even believe how bad it is. And often, now we have young children, people just think that it's the norm for young children for having a young family. And yeah, but I've always been like this. Another one, loving really deep conversations but missing social cues. Now, this seems to be very common in people who have ADHD and or autistic, but that doesn't mean that people who only have ADHD or are only autistic couldn't struggle with it as well. Anyone that knows me really well knows that I do often struggle to pick up on certain social rules, particularly asking about another person and continuing a conversation about that person and not turning it on to myself. I'm not very good at that and I'm working on it. But if you want to have a really deep philosophical conversation about something with me, I'm brilliant. So yeah, anything that is really deep or about topics of my interest, I can talk about with ease. And then the last one is becoming hyper focused on a project only to burn out and abandon it. I feel like this is another constant thing. I have such incredible ideas, and I'm not putting that lightly. I have incredible ideas. I can be very skilled. I can learn anything I want to. And there are so many chances that I've had to really make something of myself, but then I don't because I can't stick at it. Because the second that it's not bringing me dopamine constantly anymore and there's a new shiny object in front of me, I can't carry on. And that sucks. That really sucks. But don't worry, I'm on social media and I'm here to stay. I've worked out a way around it this time. and you guys are going to help me stick with it. If you've been nodding along to these and you want more examples to reflect on, or perhaps bring to an assessment or a discussion with a GP, I have created an entire autism and ADHD cheat sheet. I've linked the free version below, which you can download now, and then the full version is packed with over 150 relatable examples, and they are grouped in categories for ease of use. I'll be linking this and other resources that I create in my Stand store below. If you don't need the full list, if you only think that you're autistic or have ADHD, you'll be able to get them listed separately. But yeah, if you want to support my work here, please do consider looking into them if there's something that will help you. I would love to know down below in the comments what examples resonated with you. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos about living with autism, ADHD, or both. Let's make this space make sense for our brains.